Hey folks, welcome back to When the Dust Settles, where we examine the story shaping Africa and the world through context, facts, and thorough analysis. Today we are connecting two major developments unfolding thousands of miles away, but linked by one common challenge: corruption. On one side, the African Union marked Anti-Corruption Day 2026 with a renewed continental commitment to transparency and accountability. On the other side, Iraq has launched what may be one of the country's largest anti-corruption operations in decades, recovering hundreds of pounds of gold, tens of millions of dollars in cash, and arresting dozens of officials. What do these developments have tell us about the global fight against corruption? Let's examine the facts. As Africa commemorates Africa Anti-Corruption Day, or commemorated Africa Anti-Corruption Day, the chairperson of the African Commission, His Excellency Muhammad Ali Youssouf, reconfirmed the African Union's commitment or determination to place integrity, transparency, and accountability at the center of Africa's development agenda. This year's theme is scaling up the promotion of integrity and anti-corruption across action across Africa. According to Chairperson Youssouf, corruption remains one of the continent's greatest obstacles, preventing Africans from achieving the ambitions of Agenda 2063, the African Union's long-term blueprint for economic transformation, good governance, peace, and integrity. The chairman quoted former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan, who said, "If corruption is a disease, integrity and transparency are the remedies for the rebirth of our continent." That statement captures the reality many Africans experience today. Corruption is not simply about a politician stealing money. It affects healthcare. It weakens education. It delays infrastructure projects. It discourages investors. It increases poverty, and perhaps most importantly, it destroys public trust. Without trust, democratic institutions struggle to function. Without accountability, development becomes nearly impossible. Now, building a culture of integrity. The chairperson of the African Union, Youssouf, emphasized that laws alone cannot eliminate corruption. Africa already has legal instruments. The continent has the African Union Commission on Preventing and Combating Corruption, implemented with support from the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption, commonly known as the AUABC. But legislation alone is not enough. The chairman argued that Africa must also build a culture where ethics, honesty, and accountability becomes part of everyday governance. And I don't want to touch on this because it has to do with something that just happened in my country of birth, Liberia. The former finance minister under George Samuel Toure, right, was just tried in Liberia for corruption a few days ago, or a few months ago. And the final ruling from the court was that he was not guilty. You know, I was listening to something on the radio where the lawyers discuss legal issues on the radio, and one of the lawyers was saying that, what is written in the paper about the person is different from what, is presented in court, because the paper will say the person is corrupt. They'll put all these the stories together, but in court is what you can prove. It's not what you can say. So the facts in the case in the court are always different from those in the papers. So Simon Toa want to quote. I hope I'm pronouncing his name the right way. He went to court and he was found not guilty. And one friend was saying, "Oh, the trial was not fair." As I said, the losing side will always say the trial was not fair. The winning side will always say, or usually say, the trial was fair. So, the chairperson argued that, as I already said, that means that stronger public institutions, right? Transparent procurement systems, independent anti-corruption agencies, empowered civil society, responsible private sectors, and citizens that are willing to demand accountability. The chairman also encouraged member states to adopt national integrity strategy while strengthening cooperation across borders to recover stolen assets and prosecute corruption that increasingly operates internationally. The message from Addis Ababa is clear. Combating corruption is not only a government's responsibility, it is a continental responsibility. Now let's go to Iraq, right? While Africa renewed its policy commitment, Iraq demonstrated what aggressive enforcement can look like. Iraqi authorities announced one of the country's largest anti-corruption operations in recent memories. Authorities seized more than 825 pounds of gold, tens of thousands of dollars in cash, luxury vehicles, homes, and other valuable assets. More to that, at least 21 people were arrested. Those implicated reportedly included senior government officials as well as former and current members of parliament. Think about that for a little bit. So the investigation in Iraq centered on the country's oil sector. Everybody wants to work in lucrative, corrupt people want to work in lucrative sector in the oil sector, and follows the arrest of Deputy Oil Minister Jumari, who was accused of involvement in corruption. So in Iraq, as I said, investigators revealed extraordinary recovery. Nearly 790 pounds of gold were recovered during one operation. Another 37 pounds of gold were found separately. Officials also uncovered approximately $10.6 million worth in Iraqi currency hidden inside rainwater drainage systems. Water drainage system. These numbers illustrate the enormous financial cost corruption imposed on the nation. Every dollar diverted from corruption represents resources available for hospitals, schools, electricity, roads, and job creation. Prime Minister Zari, who assumed office in May of this year, has pledged to confront corruption directly. Unlike previous administration that critics accused of making promises without meaningful action, many observers believe this campaign appears unusually aggressive. Government officials suggest investigation will not start with oil ministry. Other sectors will also face similar scrutiny. Authorities have already begun preparing legal documents seeking the extradition of hundreds of corruption suspects who are believed to be living abroad. or overseas. If successful, Iraq's campaign could become one of the largest anti-corruption recovery efforts in the region. Folks, corruption and security are connected, and I'm going to tell you how, right? Anti-corruption campaign comes in Iraq. Anti-corruption campaign comes as Prime Minister Zidi meet with President Donald Trump at the White House. The discussion reportedly focused on several major issues: expanding American investment in Iraqi infrastructure, strengthening energy cooperation, plan to disarm Iraq or Iran-backed militia, and the future withdrawal of American troops in Iraq. These concerns may appear separate from corruption, right? In reality, they are deeply connected. Weak governance often creates opportunity for corruption. Corruption weakens security institutions. Weak security discourages investment. Without investment, economic growth slows. Without growth, unemployment rises. And those conditions can fuel instability. Governance, security, and economic development are interconnected. Folks, what Africa can learn. Africa does not have to copy Iraq, but there are valuable lessons. Successful anti-corruption campaigns require more than speeches. It requires political will, independent investigators, functioning courts, financial transparency, asset recovery, and consequences for those who abuse public trust or public office. Equally important, anti-corruption efforts must apply equally regardless of political affiliation. If investigations target only political opponents while protecting allies, public confidence quickly disappears. Consistency is key. Justice must be impartial. The bigger picture, right? Corruption remains one of the greatest barriers to development, not only in Africa or Iraq, but across the world. Whether the money comes from oil revenue, infrastructure contracts, custom duties, mining licenses, or public procurement, corruption ultimately steals from ordinary citizens. It reduces opportunities. It weakens institutions. It delays development. It increases inequality. The African Union's message this year is therefore significant. Integrity is not simply an ethical issue. It is an economic strategy. It is a governance strategy. It is a development strategy. And ultimately, it is a strategy for building public trust. Folks, the events in Africa and Iraq remind us that the fight against corruption is entering a new phase. The African Union is calling for stronger institutions and a culture of integrity. Iraq is attempting to demonstrate that corruption can be confronted through investigations, arrests, and asset recovery. Whether these efforts produce lasting change remains to be seen. But one fact is beyond dispute. No country can achieve sustainable development while corruption continues to drain public resources and undermine confidence in government. The real challenge is not announcing anti-corruption campaigns. The real challenge is sustaining them, regardless of who is implicated. If Africa is to realize Agenda 2063, which I talked about on multiple occasions, and if countries around the world are to build stronger economies and more trusted governments, integrity must become more than a slogan. It must become a standard, folks. Thanks for watching when the dust settles. If you enjoyed this analysis, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Can Africa and Iraq succeed in reducing corruption? Or will these efforts face the same obstacles as previous ones or campaigns? Until next time, I'm Peeco Conway. Stay informed, stay engaged, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.